When you are having a visualization experience cultivated with new feelings, you're going to be calling in a new reality.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Danielle. She is a divine feminine dating coach and a relationship expert. Her story is her superpower, and today we're going to talk about that and much more. And Morgan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, JP. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely grateful. I saw a post that you wrote and it really just resonated with me. So that's what made me reach out and ask you to be a guest today. And I guess I always begin with just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up in this space?
Sure. So something that I always say is that my mess became my message. I struggled so deeply with my own relationships. For 13 years of my life, I struggled with toxic relationships, abusive relationships. And once I figured out why I was having these relationships and that I actually had the power to change it, I knew that that's something that I really had to share with as many women as I could. It was just something that I couldn't keep to myself. And so it really was a life journey for me to go from relationship to relationship and figure out, oh, I see why I attracted this person. I see why I attracted that person. What was happening within me that I was allowing myself to be available for this kind of treatment. And so, things didn't happen overnight. I didn't just, snap my fingers and all of a sudden, I went from toxic and abusive relationships to the most epic love affair of my life. But it really was a journey of understanding the root cause for those relationship patterns and then healing the relationship to myself and then understanding how to open my heart and how to actually connect with men in a way that would communicate my value, but also be a great experience for them. And so through all of those trials and tribulations, I now am engaged to my fiance and we're getting married in October of next year.
Wow, that's awesome. I love to hear that. What you're saying, it sounds to me, it's not just relationships. This is also other areas of life. We see it like with alcoholic, where they end up alcoholic or they end up in the same kind of pattern relationship and they can't change it because they just don't see it. So dark night of the soul, you have to see it before you can change it. And so what kind of did that look like, or how did you grow out of that?
Yes. And so, sometimes when we're not getting the message to change or slow down or look at your patterns, we will hit rock bottom. And so I feel like I used to be the kind of girl that would need to hit rock bottom before I could see what I needed to see and make a change. And luckily, I don't operate from that place anymore. But it really came down to I remember like the first time I really decided that things needed to change. When I would have these relationships, I'm like, something needs to change. Something needs to change. I don't understand this. And then it wasn't until I actually had an experience where somebody that I was dating, they threw me into a bathtub and it resulted in a severe concussion. And I had to spend about a week in a pitch dark room. And at the time, my daughter was young. I was a single mom for 12 years. And so she was young at this point, and I couldn't take care of her the way that I needed to. And I didn't want her seeing, me in that position. And so it really clicked for me that I needed to change my life and I needed to change what was happening in my relationships. And so after that, I was in 4 abusive relationships by the time I was 21. And then after that experience, I vowed to myself I would never be in a abusive relationship again. And I wasn't. I just started attracting men who were emotionally unavailable. And so, it wasn't as severe as before, but it still wasn't quite what I wanted. And so, because of that situation, I put myself through cosmetology school, and I started to really better my life, raise my self-esteem, really connect with a different purpose. And that helped to a degree. But again, it didn't stop there. And so that was kind of my dark night of the soul for that period of my life. And then another, rock bottom situation happened where my daughter's father passed away pretty tragically, and his parents had a court case against me trying to prove me as an unfit mother, not because I was, but because I did not allow them to do whatever they wanted, essentially. And so that really caused me to, again, look at my life, see, where I was abandoning myself, what boundaries I needed to put into place, because essentially I did not have boundaries with them. I kind of just let them run me and my daughter's life for about a year. And so once I finally set boundaries, because I got so ill from stress-related illnesses due to self-abandonment, that's when the court case came about, because I no longer was a doormat. And so that really just made me take a long, hard look at, okay, I had a part to play in this situation. I need to learn how to set boundaries, and I need to learn how to heal my codependency, because that's what I found out was, part of the problem was me struggling with codependency. And so although that was one of the most challenging, horrible experiences of my life, I won the court case, which was amazing, but it put me $40,000 into debt. And it really did cause so much emotional distress. But now that I was on the other side of it, it's what caused me to start my business. It's what started me to learn how to heal my own codependency, which then in turn allowed me to help other women heal their codependency. So although it was so incredibly painful at the time, I had something within me that was trying to get out, and the only way that I would listen were through these really tough experiences. And so that's really I had these two really difficult dark night of the souls, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so that's what birthed the business that I have today. I've been running it for 4.5 years now, and it's been thriving. And I just know that this was my purpose on this earth, due to all of the pain that I had gone through before.
Yeah, I love that. And so that's why I said off the top, your story is a superpower. That's exactly right. I think that dark night of the soul, like you said it there, and same thing happened to me. And I don't know if I would change it. I'm not saying yours, but like for me, I wouldn't change it, even though it was like a decade of hell, because I wouldn't be here now. And now it's like, oh, okay. I think Steve Jobs has a quote about you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can only connect them looking backwards. And so now that you're here, you could probably see, oh, this was really unfortunate, but it helped me get to here. And it was aligning the whole time to make you who you are.
And when you just said that quote, I got all of the goosebumps, because it's so true. Just like you said, you wouldn't change anything. I would not change a single thing if it meant that I ended up right in this spot. And that's something that I teach my clients to look at, instead of looking at, why is this happening to me, or feeling like a victim to the circumstances. I really empower them to see, how is it happening for them. If you could take some lessons away, what would you say were your greatest learning lessons from this painful experience, so you don't have to repeat it?
Yeah. And then codependency, emotionally unavailable, all these kind of things point away from self-love. So maybe at that point, I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't have it, but then you develop it and now you have it. Part of that sounds like it's because of your daughter. And so how important is self-love before you start going looking for the perfect relationship, a perfect guy, or all of that?
I love that question, because something, the main part of what I teach is healing the relationship to self, because the relationship that you have with yourself is essentially the foundation for every other relationship that you have. And so if you have a relationship with yourself where you are toxic to yourself, you're beating yourself up, you are self-abandoning, you are not listening to your intuition, you're treating yourself poorly, you're not taking care of your mental health or your physical health, then how can we expect that somebody else is going to see our value and want to treat us with love and respect? And so we do set the tone for the way that we will be loved by the way that we treat ourselves. And so it's not just about dating. It's not the perfect profile. It's not online dating versus in person. It's so much deeper than that, because if we have rejection and abandonment wounds and we are abandoning ourselves to please other people and we're not setting boundaries and we're reactive, or we are doing things that are out of alignment with ourselves because we don't value who we are and we don't value our time, our energy, our body, or anything else, then nobody else is going to see our value. And so that's how I drastically started to see a difference in the men that I used to attract versus my fiance now. Is I love and care about myself on such a deep level that I would never do something that would cause self-harm, or and of course it's a journey. Sometimes we don't realize that we're doing something out of alignment, and then we realize it and then we can correct it. This isn't about perfection, but it's that willingness to be like, I choose myself above all else. And when we do that, we become an energetic match for somebody who chooses us as well.
Right. So thoughts are electric, feelings are magnetic. You have a thought, it goes out of your head and bounces along in the field until it finds a match, but your feelings will bring it back. So if your thought is like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, that'll bounce along and you're going to attract somebody who's vibrating with that back to you. Whereas if I love myself and I'm whatever it is, then you're going to bounce that back to you. So it's really important that the thoughts are electric. I think we all know that. Thoughts are energy, they go out of your head. MRI, fMRI, but that feeling part about magnetizing it back to you, you have to feel it. And this is easy to understand through any kind of manifestation. Oh, good things never happen to me. Oh, I'm scared I'm going to get in an accident. And then it happens because your fear is, and so however big the emotion is, then it's going to attract it, good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Misconceptions about what maybe love coaching or relationship expert is.
Yeah. So I would say common misconceptions are that it's just about, online dating, your profile, learning how to date guys, things like that. And that is part of it. Like, that's absolutely part of what I teach my clients. But there is such a foundation beneath that, just like what we talked about. So when I work with my clients, it comes down to, okay, what are we wanting to attract and what have we been attracting? And so when we can see what the patterns are, and then we can go back and look at the root cause for those patterns. So, for example, if I had a client who was continuously attracting toxic narcissistic men, who would harm her, reject her, belittle her, all the things. And then we look at, okay, well, when was the first time that you experienced that? And then she'll tell me, I had an alcoholic father or a mother who was hypercritical and, things like that. And so we have to look at our childhood experiences play a huge role in what we attract in our romantic partners as adults, because oftentimes our subconscious is seeking out people and experiences that mirror what we had gone through or how we had felt in childhood. And so I help them connect those dots. I help them see the pattern of who they're attracting. I help them connect the dots of where it's stemming from. And we begin to heal that on a subconscious level, because the subconscious is where all of our patterning, our conditioning, our relationship blueprint, our core beliefs, that's where all of that lies. So we have to heal that. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to fix a subconscious problem with just like action. And that's not necessarily going to work, because you have all these beliefs underneath that love isn't safe, love has to equal pain, all of those things. And so we have to look at that and deconstruct that first, and then rewrite the story so that you can lay a stable foundation. And once you're able to lay that stable foundation, that's when you can start working on your self-concept, where you're raising your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-love. You're able to, as a woman, soften into your divine feminine nature, where you feel safe being, not overperforming, not overdoing, not trying to earn love, but you're actually just feeling so worthy that you feel like you can attract love by just who you are. So you're not overextending yourself. You're not trying to force things to happen, which I see a lot of when we have these childhood wounds of rejection and abandonment. And so when we're softening into that divine feminine nature, that's when we can actually attract, because we don't have all this resistance built up around us. So it's so much deeper than just dating. It really is fully a life transformation and relationship transformation.
Yeah. That neediness, it comes across and it comes out, it vibrates out, and it's obvious and it's not very attractive. So I definitely get it. And then the conscious, subconscious, right?
Yes.
If 95% of our brain is a subconscious program and computer going on, and then consciously is only 5% that we're waking intentionally trying to do something. There's no way you're going to be able to override a 95% computer with a 5% computer. So you have to change those subconscious patterns like you're talking about. And there's lots of ways, like things like affirmations, but what are some other ways maybe?
Yeah. So when I teach my clients how to rewire their subconscious programming, so essentially our memories, they can be changed. And so when we think about our inner child, there are things that we experienced, and then there's new memories that we're putting into place because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. And so if you're going through a visualization of your inner child getting her needs met, and she feels safe and she feels loved and she feels like she's safe, then that's actually really going to start. And it happens very quickly when we can visualize that and actually feel the feelings of it, because just like you said, like the feelings are what's the most powerful. And so if we're visualizing experiences where our inner child is getting their needs met and they're loved and safe and cherished and all the things, then that's already starting to diminish those feelings of unworthiness and feelings of lack and fear. And so the more that you do that, and again, it's not a one and done thing, as you know, it's something that, and our inner child work is really never done. It's just, we get better at it. And there are going to be things throughout our entire life where we're like, oh, I didn't realize this was related to this, or I needed to heal this. But you can really get to a place where you are back in the driver's seat rather than your inner child, because you can tell when your inner child's in the driver's seat by like kind of the reactions that you have, your behaviors that you have, the thoughts that you're having. A lot of the time it's black and white, or you get really reactive and you're like, wow, like I'm feeling like these behaviors are pretty childish. And it's because they are, because our inner child is trying to keep you from getting hurt, but it's just backfiring. And so visualization is really important. I take my clients through visualizations. I have meditations that they go through, and I have them rewrite their experiences and reparent their inner child. So that's how I really help them heal within the subconscious.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like hypnosis is a part of that for you.
I've I'm not certified in hypnosis, but I feel like there's a lot of similarities in there when you are having a visualization experience cultivated with new feelings. You're going to be calling in a new reality. And so I've done hypnosis myself, like where I've had somebody guide me through it, but I have not done that for my clients. I just do more visualizations.
Okay, yeah, just because when you were describing all that, it's like that sounds kind of like hypnosis. I've heard other I've heard other things about writing a letter. I'm in a mastermind, and so okay, so I teach an anxiety depression group for chronic pain, and I'll do this inner child work. And what I do is I'll tell them, go to your child, write a letter to that child, and tell them that you made it. Tell them you're safe and everything worked out, right? You're here now, you're strong, you're powerful, whatever that challenge was. And so that's a good one, and it seems to work. And then someone in my mastermind, this was the conversation, and she said that she does something similar, but she'll go back and grab the child by their hand and bring them forward to the right now through a visualization process. And I thought, wow, that's a powerful one as well. So hypnosis, visualization, writing letters, all these things. And then something I don't want to skip over that you said was awesome is that as we grow and age and our brain changes, the memories that we have are not 100% true. And part of it is
Right.
because of the life that's happened since that memory. So if something happened when you were 5, now you're an adult, you see the world different, you know new things, and there's more information. And so our memories kind of change as we grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Joe Dispenza talks about that. If you've listened to him before, yeah, I love Joe Dispenza. He talked about how like a lot of the times, you know, our memories are based on our perspective, and so they're not even fully true. And so we have all this meaning that we're tying to all these things, and a lot of the time it's just the meaning that we're giving it, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. And so you know, as we go through our life, I wrote a post the other day that said like our life is like a what would Danny do book, if you've ever read those. It's like where Danny, this kid, he is presented with different choices throughout his day, and then that equals the kind of day he had. And so that's kind of how our life is. We are thinking these thoughts, we're feeling these feelings, we're taking these actions, and that's all getting us to where we are, right? And so if we have an experience that is painful, we get the choice of what we're going to make that mean. Are we going to make it that we're unlovable, that love's never going to work out for us? Or are we going to make it mean that, wow, I learned a lot about myself from this situation, and now I'm more clear on what I want and what I don't want? So we always have that choice and that opportunity to view it in a way that's actually going to be beneficial for us.
100%. I thought you were going to say life is like a box of chocolates.
That's too cliche. I can't say that on a podcast.
So a couple of things together here. So you said self-concept. We're talking about identity, rewiring, and making a new identity that you want, that you love, that you wake up and it's a great life.
Yeah.
I'd like you to talk about that, but kind of marrying it to the navigating conflict internally and externally, because there's that conversation going on inside as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the life that we're creating and the person that we want to be, when we're saying, I really want to have this life, I really want to be this person, and then we're presented with challenges, I like to call them initiations. You know, some people don't like the saying like you're being tested, but I actually enjoy that because that means it's a challenge. And so, and a good challenge at that, right? And so when we're saying, I desire the most epic love affair of my life, and then you are presented with a, you know, man or somebody who is almost what you want, but you notice some red flags, and then you give into those red flags. The way that I see that is, okay, you're being prepared for what you're asking for. And so, yeah, you can say, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot, I fell for this guy, and that means that love's never going to happen for me. Or you can say, okay, I see that I fell back into an old pattern, and now I have the wisdom for when this happens next time. Because when we're talking about having, you know, whether it's a business or having a relationship, or we're wanting this next level of life, we have to become the type of person that would have it. And so, who do I have to become in order to have my epic love affair? Well, that would mean that I would have to heal codependency and people pleasing and overextending and overgiving, because a high value partner would be repelled by that behavior, and I would not be happy in a connection where I have to do those things. So that would get me to my ultimate epic love affair, is me not doing the behavior that I've always done that's resulted in painful relationships. And so we always have an opportunity to become and act as if we were already that person that would have the thing that we want. And so that's why I always, you know, the way that I position my work is becoming the energetic match for the most epic love affair of your life, because there is a becoming in that. And if you're where you're at now, to get to your next level, you're going to have to change some things. You're going to have to heal patterns and wounds and, learn how to have certain skills. Like one of the things that I teach my clients is divine feminine communication, which is wildly important if you want to have a healthy long-term relationship with little conflict. And not to say conflict is bad. You can absolutely use conflict for to create deeper intimacy and understanding. But I would much rather have a nice, loving, peaceful relationship that feels good most of the time, And so you have to learn certain skills in order to do that. And one skill that I had to learn, when I was severely codependent, I was very reactive and I would put blame on the other person for the way that I felt. And I see that's a very common thing that people tend to do. And so what I teach my clients is how to actually take responsibility for our feelings and communicate coming from a proactive place and a secure place. Instead of being reactive and putting the blame, we're saying, I feel upset. This is what happened. Instead of saying you did this and this is why we can't do this and, all of that. And so that really does make a huge difference. I've seen marriages completely do 180s when they incorporate these things. And so we need to have these skills and we need to learn and grow to get to that next level. And so it's not just going to be like, oh, I'm asking for this thing. Now it's going to come to me. It's like, okay, I'm asking for this thing. And these are the behaviors that I need to change. And when there's conflict put in my way, I'm going to handle it like the person I want to be, not the person who I am or have been.
100%. I was going to say, conversely, the opposite is true. If you don't change it, you'll just end up with the exact same.
Exactly.
You said a couple times react. So the idea is just to respond, right? Instead of react.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah,
so,
responding to a lot of people listen to respond instead of listening to understand. And again, we're not perfect. There's been instances where I've been quick to respond, but I catch that and then I change the behavior, right? So again, it's not about being perfect, but it is about self-awareness and being willing to work on that in order to have a better experience.
wow. I had a client the other day and she was telling me that whatever the situation was, normally she would have spiraled for weeks. And she's like, oh, it was only 2 hours. And I'm like, you should be proud of yourself. It's amazing. That's what I was like, wow, like you're shortening that period. That's the goal because it's not going to never happen. It's going to happen. But how long till you get out of your mental mess to get back to normal?
Yeah, it's your bounce back rate rather than like feeling like it needs to be perfect or, like you're never going to get triggered again. It's like, okay, well, this may have triggered you for weeks or months, but now it's just happening for a couple hours. That's a huge improvement. And it's always about bouncing back and coming back to yourself.
That was a weird one because kind of because of the conversation up to here, but what about the 5 love languages? Physical touch, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, acts of service, and quality time. Do they play in and how so?
I would say absolutely, because when we don't understand our partner, we will do what we think shows love, but maybe they don't feel love in that way. And that can absolutely go for like parent-child relationships where it's like my parents never showed me they loved me when maybe their parents gave gifts, but they needed physical touch, right? And so same thing goes for partners. And if you know yourself, then you're more easily able to communicate to your partner what you need, right? And so, for example, if I had a client who really needed quality time, but she was in a connection where the person was more about, again, gifts or acts of service, it's not going to feel like my client's getting her needs met. And so that's going to create conflict where it's going to be like, you don't show me you love me. And this person's like, what do you mean? I just, made you dinner and put oil in your car. Of course I love you. And so you have to understand yourself and know yourself in order for you to share with your partner what feels good for you what shows that your partner loves and cares about you. So I think that's really important. And when it comes to compatibility, I think that's also very important because, I teach my clients how to pick partners that they don't want to change anything about. They are wildly compatible with them because that's what creates long-term connection rather than a bunch of power struggles within the connection. And so if you're knowing that you're picking a partner that just is not physically affectionate, like they don't like hugs, they don't like public displays of affection, they don't like to cuddle on the couch, but they show you that they love you through making dinner reservations and whatever, that would not be a good fit if you really need physical affection. I'm one of those people. I need quality time and physical affection. And luckily, my fiance is exactly the same way. Not that we're exactly the same, but he does love to cuddle and to be affectionate and all the things. So I feel like my needs are met. So it's really important that when you are making the decision of who you're wanting to date or who you're wanting to be in a relationship with, do they love you? Can they love you the way that you need them to? And if the answer is yes, fantastic. If the answer is no, maybe you should be picking somebody else.
Amazing. The reason I prefaced it that way is because the conversation earlier about self-love, how important it is to love yourself. You're only with yourself for 24 hours a day. And so there's a part of and I love your answer, by the way, but there's a part of the love languages where we got to be careful not to put all of it on someone else, because then you're codependent again and you're, and it's like, but a part of it's about you. So I definitely love your answer there.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's so important for us to fill our cup up first. And what we get from our partner feels like abundance because we're not needing everything from them. Like we have happiness within ourselves. Like, for example, if I was really insecure and the only way I could feel good is if my partner told me that I was beautiful, and, they're not going to be saying a million times a day how beautiful you are. Like, that's just not sustainable. It's not realistic. Of course, you want somebody who's going to treat you well. But if you needed that from them, there's always going to be like, I don't feel good because you're not doing this. And so if you feel secure and you feel fulfilled and you feel good within yourself, what you get from your partner, first of all, your partner's going to be way more willing to give you what you need because you're not nagging them, you're not putting pressure on them to do it, you're not trying to force them to do it. It comes from a place of, I want to because you're so receptive to me. And so if you're doing it yourself, again, you're going to be an energetic match for somebody who's going to want to give those things freely.
Brilliant. So for someone who's just listening to this conversation going, that's what I want, I just don't know how to get there, it sounds like we need to start by just at least identifying and breaking those patterns. So do you have certain tools that can help? I know we talked about visualization, but I think the subconscious thing again is how we can go about that. But what does that look like?
Yes. And so I would say first getting really, really clear on what you want and how you want to feel, right? And so if we know, and if you don't know exactly what you want, knowing how you want to feel is a really good starter, because sometimes we think we know what we want, but it's not in alignment, or maybe we want it for reasons of, unworthiness or something like that. So if you can just get clear on how you want to feel first, then that is a wonderful starting point, because then you're like, okay, I know that I want to feel loved, I want to feel cherished, I want to feel important. And then what I would tell somebody to do is start cultivating those feelings within yourself. And so you are doing things that make you feel loved. Maybe you're in meditation and you're bringing up feelings of when you felt important, when you felt cherished, when you felt loved. And also taking actions that would prioritize yourself and make you feel like you are important. So something that I teach all my clients is becoming your own muse. So you are romanticizing the relationship with yourself and your life. So for example, you are making yourself a candlelit dinner and you're really taking time to prepare it. You're dancing in the kitchen, you're listening to romantic music. Then maybe you draw yourself a beautiful bath with rose petals. You're listening to, music that makes you feel good. You have candles in there. So like you're putting a lot of intention and energy into yourself, and you're cultivating those feelings first, because as we know, a law of manifestation is you have to feel it first before it can come to you, right? And so that's where you can start. And then to break the patterns, first you just have to have more awareness around what your patterns are, and then noticing your behaviors. So for example, if you struggle with codependency and somebody is wanting to get physically intimate on the first date, so what I've seen and what I've experienced in my past is you do that because you don't know how to tell them no, and you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. And so you just go along with it because you don't know what else to do. So practicing would say, you know what, I actually don't feel comfortable doing that. And being able to do something differently. So again, you're just noticing these patterns that you have, and then you're saying, okay, well, I had this pattern. What's something different that I can do instead? And so you just start with little actions. Maybe when you're constantly saying yes to everybody, you practice saying, no, I didn't, maybe you don't want to go out with a friend, but you do it even though you're exhausted. And so you just practice saying, you know what, I'm actually going to stay in tonight. I'm feeling a little tired. So it's just those small things that are going to build your worth, because you're not ignoring yourself anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Boundaries again, like you're talking about. It's all boundaries is a starting point.
Yeah.
There's a book, I think it was in The Secret, but I'm don't quote me on it. But the girl said like that somebody was they wanted a relationship, and she kind of asked her like, what does your life and your house look like? And she said her closet is all scattered. And she's like, if you want someone else to come in your house and sleep in your bed and be your partner, you need to make half your clothes on the closet for you and the other half empty. You need to have half the bed for you and the other half who's for that partner that you're trying to call in. Because if it's all scattered, the universe is just like, doesn't understand. Once you make it clear. And
Yeah.
I think as you're talking about manifestation, there's something where like, if you don't call it or you don't tell the universe what you want, you're just going to get whatever's left over. The universe needs time to go and organize movement. And if it took you that long to get to here, it's not going to happen overnight. Actually, it could happen overnight depending on how high you're vibrating, but the universe is going to need a minute to organize movement to get the right people to come into your life. But these little kind of sneaky tricks like that, they're intentional, and you're sending out that intention again. You said
I
about,
love that you said that.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I read that too. I don't know if it's from The Secret or not, but I read that too. And it's like that preparation for the relationship. Like, you believe that it's going to happen. And so you're preparing for it to be there. So yeah, maybe you have clothes on your bed that you just keep there. Again, maybe that's a way of protecting yourself. And then you clean them off and you put them away. And so when that person is ready to come spend the night in your bed, they have a spot.
I love that. Yeah.
And then the other thing is practicing. You talked about, you didn't say the word practice, but that's what it is, right? You have to be the thing and practice it. And when you said earlier about that, the mind doesn't know the difference. The one I always go to, it's good if no one's heard it, but I think you might already know it, but you just picture you're standing in your kitchen. You have a cutting board, a knife, and a lemon. You cut the lemon in half. Then you cut a quarter off. And then you pick up the lemon and you bite into it. And all of a sudden your mouth starts to water, but there's no actual lemon, but the mind doesn't know the difference. So I don't know if fake it to the make it is the one that I'm talking about here, but being the thing is so important. You said it in, I'll give you a different context of being the thing is a marathon, right? You start at day one and you got to train for however, 12, 16, 20 weeks. And at the end of it, you can run a marathon. But on day one, you can't do that. You're not running 26 miles today, right? But if we practice for 4 months, and so then the end goal, you reverse engineer. What's the end goal? I want to run a marathon. Well, what does that look like? Well, if I want to run 26, first I got to run 25, 24, and you slowly work towards it. And the same could be true in the love life as well. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
One other thing I didn't want to skip over was Mm, I forget. So I'm just gonna ask you, what what is the most common like thing that you see with women, like the same pattern that's happening over and over again? The reason I'm asking this is because someone listening to this, it might help them either identify that, oh, that's me too. Maybe I should talk to Morgan, or I know a friend who's doing that and I can help her out.
Yes. Okay. So I see very commonly that women will they'll rush into relationship and it'll burn out after the honeymoon phase is over. And so they're rushing into these relationships. The guy turns out to be toxic, untruthful, all of the things. And then they get their heart broken. And it feels like such a loss, even though maybe it was for 3 weeks, maybe it was for 2 weeks, maybe it was for a couple of months, right? But I always say that relationships that start off hot tend to burn quickly. And so I teach my clients how to have a healthy evolution from dating into committed partnership. Because the thing is, when we have these rejection and abandonment wounds, the moment you get love bombed by somebody, the moment somebody tries to manipulate you by saying all the things that you want to hear, all the things that your little inner child has wanted to hear their whole life because they didn't get their needs met, they just put on these rose-colored glasses and all judgment goes out the window. And so when we have that oxytocin, it makes the judgment part of our brain not work so well. And so if we have these heightened emotions because things are happening hard and fast, then our judgment is not going to be as good as if they were moving very slowly. And so we have to give ourselves an opportunity to ask, is this person's actions meeting their words for an extended period of time? Because anybody can be anybody for a week. Anybody can be anybody for 3 weeks, but nobody can really fake things for that long if you are, spreading it out, taking things slow, because they're going to get bored and they're going to want to go manipulate somebody else that's going to let it happen quicker, right? And so that is a very common pattern I see. I also see women who are going out on dates, having, these short-term connections where they come on really strong. So, for example, it's like they are overgivers. They are the ones that are trying to pursue, initiate all the things. And they also try to like problem solve, fix, heal somebody. And so they are going out on these dates and then maybe they have a great date and then they're like, texting the guy constantly, or they are, trying to make the next date plan instead of letting him initiate and lead, she's taking the lead, but it's coming from a place of fear of rejection and abandonment. So like I have to take control so that I don't get hurt, but what that does is it repels them, and so they don't have any reason to come forward and to try to create a connection with her. So I've seen that quite a bit as well.
Yeah, that one word, that's a good one there for like the words of affirmation, right? The person saying all the right things. Because now, if you know your own love languages, so this is good. Anyone listening to this, go study the love languages and figure it out. Gary Chapman, I think his name is, but go read that book. And if you know it's words for affirmations, then you can kind of deflect and defend, and it will help you to stop making the same mistake over again. It's like, okay, this is what I'm seeking on the subconscious level without even knowing it.
I love that. That's so true, because if you know what you're subconsciously seeking to try to get from somebody, then you can be like, hold on a second, let me give this to myself and then come back to this.
All right. As we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Morgan. Obviously, you can tell by this conversation exactly what she's got to offer. We know that her stories are superpower. And you said about projecting into the future and becoming. And this is the Phase 4 podcast. And in the 6th phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani, Phase 4, it's all about creating your future 3 years out. So where is Morgan 3 years from today?
That's such a good question. So what's funny is I did an NLP course a few years ago, and it said, where are you going to be in 4 years? And that was March. 4 years from then would have been March 2024. And I wrote out, I'm going to be in my dream home with my husband and my daughter, and we're going to be playing and we're going to be doing all these things. And I was like, I mean, I'm not married yet, but I'm, in my dream home with my daughter and my fiance. And so it was really cool to see that actually come to fruition. And so 3 years from now, I see myself, that's such a good question. I see myself married. I see myself traveling the world, having a podcast, having rental properties, having an organization for women to get free or very affordable legal representation if they are being abused by their ex in a lawsuit or in court. So that's where I see myself in 3 years, living my best life, continuing to help as many women as I can, and having fun with different income opportunities.
That's awesome. I could see for the people listening on audio, I see your eyes go up. Go check out the video. But that question, I see you going into the future, looking for it and grabbing it, which is great. And then even your answer, it's so aligned to everything right now. Like what happened in your past. Yeah, I'm going to help women go forward. And then the one that you did, you're talking about the NLP, that I love the fact that it's like mostly came true. You know what SMART goals are?
What is?
SMART goals, like specific, measurable, attainable, real,
SMART goal, or knew what it was at least.
It's just like a framework, but it means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And so the only one that's not really is the time. So everything you have that you did in that NLP course, it's all happening. Just you have to adjust the timeline. And so if you're fiance and you're going to get married, you stretch that timeline a little bit and boom, it happens, right?
Right. And so that's just the power of intention. And when you take aligned action, you're going to get where you're wanting to go. You just have to put it out there and then follow your intuition and your heart.
All right. I got a page full of notes, and one of them says alignment. And you've said that a couple of times, align. So every year, and we're just starting off 2025, but this is the time of year where you start planning your year. Maybe on the zeros and fives, you're planning 5 years out. I always attach a theme word to, not always. I started in like 2019 attaching a theme word. And then what I do is I try to live into that theme word. And then the following year, I bring it with me and add a new theme word. So all of December, I've kind of reviewed my year, what I did, what I didn't do, how did I crush it, how didn't I? And now I'm starting to move forward this past week. And the theme word just comes, right? If you let it, if you get quiet enough and you get silent and solitude, it will come. And that's how you know what intuition is. It just slams into the back of your head. You don't have to think about it. You just know this is the truth for me. So I got my theme word a little while ago, a couple of days ago, and it's alignment through expansion.
Ooh, I love that. And I love that that's your exercise, because I do something very similar. I pick my word for the year and tap into, always going back to, am I in alignment with this? So that's such a great exercise.
One year it was surrender, and it was so perfect because it was so obvious when I wasn't surrendering, and it was just, and then once you surrender, everything changes. But before I ask my final question, I always let the guests take it where they want. So actually,
I can't hear you for some reason.
Hello? No? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. I think, can we just talk about your coaching program for a minute, or what kind of coaching, one-on-one, group coaching, whatever, packages, courses, anything, whatever it is?
Of course. So first, I have a free Facebook group. It's called Break the Cycle. And in there, I have tons of trainings, resources, all of the things. And so that's where you can come and hang out, and we can talk. I do Q&As, all the things. And then I have my one-on-one program. It's called Empowered Femme One-on-One. And that's where we work together for 4 or 5 months together weekly one-on-one, which is fantastic. And then I also have my Empowered Academy, which is my 6-month group coaching coaching program. And I have just the best clients in the world in all of my programs, but you get to see it so much in a group program. And so Empowered Academy is really wonderful as well.
Amazing. And before I ask my final question, I always let the guests take it where they want. So if you have a message of hope, inspiration, something to sell it, mix it all together, take it away.
Yeah, so I would say with the last words that I want to leave you with is you have so much more power than maybe you're giving yourself credit for. If you want the most epic love affair of your life, then you can create it. If you want the money, you can create it. If whatever it is, you don't have to be a victim to your circumstances. You really can create whatever it is that you're wanting to create. And so that being said, come find me in my Facebook group. Come find me in my group programs. I would love to have you.
Perfect. My final question is, how can people reach you?
I'm on Facebook. My name is Morgan Danielle on Facebook. You can find my my Facebook group called Break the Cycle. And then I also have my Instagram, which is _Morgan Danielle.
Amazing. We'll put all of that in the show notes. Morgan, I'm so grateful. This was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Fun. Yeah, thank you for having me.